Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and we are the Astrology Star Sisters. Today, talking about astrology and tarot for the Leo season. And I want to welcome Joy Vernon and Madam Simon are joining me today. So we're going to get right to it. So Joy is an astrologer, a tarot reader, and a Reiki master teacher. And her website is joyvernon.com. Madam Simon is an archetypal astrologer, tarot reader, visionary artist, and her website is iconalchemy.com. And again, I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, an astrologer, author, intuitive, and tarot reader also. And my website is alightpath.com. So we're in the Leo season. So, Joy, you want to start us off with some background on Leo?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working with the fixed modality. And so some keywords to keep in mind for that. Fixed is going to be stable, secure, dedicated. It tends to be a little bit towards the immovable, unchanging, kind of stubborn energy. The ruling planet for Leo is the sun, and its element, which makes a good sense, especially with the sun in there, is fire. And that's going to be energy, desire, passion, excitement, adventure, competition, motivation, that kind of stuff. Mantra is I will. And the keywords: dramatic, confident, brave, authoritative, noble. There's a strong sense of ego and presence that we get in Leo. It's warm and has a lot of heart energy. It can be a good leader, proud, playful, graceful, and creative. The cautions are that sometimes that getting into the spotlight, you don't want to step out again. And so it can end up all about me, maybe be a little arrogant, competitive, or inflexible. But I think the main thing for me with Leo is really that spotlight, being in the spotlight, having a little bit of showmanship. And I think that is a really nice, it's a really nice energy to be able to connect with.
Thank you. Simon, is there anything you wanted to add?
So, since Leo is ruled by the sun, to me, what Leo is really about is shining. To step forward, to shine, to be seen. And there is a kind of generosity of spirit about Leo. Yes, Leo wants the center stage, but not necessarily because they're, trying to be unpleasant to anybody. It's because they're being generous with themselves, with their creative spirit and their self-expression. And so, they're just doing what they naturally are supposed to do. They're shining like the sun. The sun doesn't apologize for shining. It just shines.
Thank you. So we're going to start with the sun ingress into Leo, and we have a double minor Grand Trine occurring and a couple of T-squares. So Simon, do you want to start with one of those aspects?
Oh, okay. So there is this ongoing minor Grand Trine that is happening between all of the outer planets at once, along with Saturn hanging out with Neptune at the moment. Okay. And so with all of these outer planets at once, in cahoots, supporting each other, there is this kind of sense of this alignment of generational forces, of the big things that impact the whole world, that impact society. But on this, there's this kind of slow basis to it because they're outer planets. They move slowly. And this configuration is in effect for, this year. It was in effect last year. It's in effect next year. It kind of goes in and out of orb, but overall, it's one of the primary signatures for this period of time. And then we've got another minor Grand Trine that is tapped into it. Okay, that is connecting with Uranus and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and that is with the sun, trine Saturn-Neptune and sextile Uranus. And so that brings extra awareness to what is going on, that we have this extra awareness of the big changes at work, in our society, in our world, and also this kind of new cycle that Saturn and Neptune are embarking on now that they've entered Aries. And of course, now they are both retrograde. They're going to head back into Pisces. And then they're going to do their big, fabulous conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries next year, next February. But, the sun is seeing, kind of that potential that we see there, and also seeing how we are reconsidering what are our dreams, what are our responsibilities, and what new things are we going to put into place once they really get going back into Aries.
Joy, do you want to talk about this T-square with the nodes?
Sure. So we've got Venus here, T-square to the nodes and to Mars, which is conjunct the south node. And those T-squares are always that kind of conflicted, I consider it kind of a headbutting energy, trying to establish a foundation and kind of get a firm footing. It can have a little bit of a like stuck in the mud energy, but it really is gearing up and getting that strong foundation established. Anytime a planet is square to the nodes, it does interact with that nodal axis, which can have a karmic influence. A nodal axis can be considered a karmic influence, or just a simple direction from the dragon's tail, where Mars is, towards the dragon's head, which is opposite to that in Pisces. And just the planet that's square to them can interrupt that energy and sometimes get us to reconsider what our goals and objectives are, and what's worth keeping and what's worth leaving behind.
And then Simon, do you want to do the T-square with the asteroids, please?
Yes. It also should be noted that Aia is very close to Venus, that Venus has just been in that conjunction with Aia that factors into that T-square. So we've got like asteroid action going on with both T-squares. In the case of the Juno square Mercury and Pallas Athena, there's this potential disruptions to our ability to plan things. Pallas is a planning, strategic kind of intelligence. Is a warrior goddess, also a goddess of wisdom, and very high concept, especially in Aquarius. Okay, great at abstract thinking. But when we've got Mercury retrograde and Pallas retrograde, now we may need to reconsider our fine plans for things, and realize that, potentially some abstract concepts about what are good for the group may not actually work out. Especially if the individuals within the group are still trying to find their voice, trying to show up, and maybe butting heads a bit in the process. I have a background in performing arts, and one of the factors that is a big thing when you are directing a show is that you have to realize you're not directing just, there's a bunch of characters here, or a bunch of dancers, or a bunch of, fashion models, or anything like that. What you're directing is a bunch of egos. And all of those egos are going to want their time to shine. They're all going to want a time to express their unique individual voice. And that can be difficult to manage when you've got a high concept for the group. Okay. And so I really see that opposition between those two as expressing that kind of tension. And then here we have Juno squaring off against both of them. She is newly direct after she spent a whole long time retrograde in Scorpio, reconsidering, what are we willing to put up with? What are we willing to sacrifice? Where are we willing to compromise in order to uphold the group's needs, in order to uphold our institutions and our relationships and our social contract, our social fabric? So there's tension going on between all of those right now. How does the individual show up within the group? How does the group handle the needs of multiple differing individuals? And where are we reconsidering the social fabric, the social contract, and how we make these dynamics work together?
Thank you. Any last comments on this chart, Joy?
No, unless you have something you'd like to add.
I think you both covered it all. So we're going to go to the next chart or the next slide. So the sun ingressed into Leo, and the sun is in the first decan of Leo. So the 5 of Wands. And the major arcana associated with Leo is strength. And on the left side, we have the Rider-Waite-Smith cards. And on the right side, we have the Thoth cards. So Joy, if you'd like to briefly give us a description of the Rider-Waite's.
Sure, absolutely. And so it's important to keep in mind with the Golden Dawn attributions, this is actually the start of the cycle of the decans. They considered it to start in Leo, at the beginning of Leo. And so I think it's important to remember that that 5 of Wands, which is usually considered conflict, the title is strife. It's going to represent the interesting development that gets any story started. Like if there's no conflict, there's no story. You just go on every day, and it's all the same. And then something interrupts that. And that's what we're doing right now. We've got that 5 of Wands saying, oh, this is something that's gone astray. What can we do? And of course, one of the things that we want to do in any story is the main character is going to take on the role of hero. And that's our strength card. And so seeing that start of that story through the zodiac circle, the conflict that launches it, and the coming into that identity as the leading persona, as the hero.
And then Simon, if you'll cover the Thoth cards.
So the 5 of Wands. In the Thoth deck, we see it has the keyword of strife, and it is Saturn in the sign of Leo. Okay, so we have Saturn currently in Aries, currently in a fire sign, and we've got, the sun has just ingressed into Leo, and so therefore is trine that Saturn. So there is some strong Saturnian energy going on right now. With this particular Leo ingress. Saturn is, among other things, known for limitation, right? For constriction. And in a sign that wants to shine, that wants to express itself and wants to be seen and heard, strife can come when folks feel like they're not getting a fair share of the pie. Okay. And so there is this need then to balance the needs of the individual with the needs of the group. Again, there is this, how is it that we show up? And how does each person get, I like to call it one's lordly due. What is it that if I'm the queen of everything, what is it that I feel is mine that I'm supposed to get? Okay. And for everybody, that's something different. And for some people, it can be quite modest. Okay. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to take from everybody else, but working out how each person gets their needs expressed and recognized and gets seen and gets their lordly due, that can be a little difficult to navigate. And so Saturn is doing this kind of restriction, but as Joy mentioned in the previous slide, there's that sense of something foundational. We see that with Saturn, okay? And as she mentioned, this is the start of, the first decan of Leo. And so there is a need for foundation. There is a need to say, okay, we're going to, kind of constrict things a little, but it's so that we can create the container in which everyone can shine. Okay? And then, with that major arcana association with strength, in the Thoth deck, this card is called Lust. And it is really about that lust for life, that vitality that comes only as a result of being willing to first shine within yourself, to first recognize what is within yourself, including all the things that other folks might see as being unlovely or unlovable, that you yourself might see as unlovely or unlovable. There is this need for this honesty with oneself about who and what we are, so that we are in a better position to shine outwardly. Okay. And you see, the figure in that card is holding primal fire in one hand. Okay. There is this sense of touching the core fire of creation here. And a great energy that is released when we're not, clamping down on ourselves and going, oh, I can't show who I really am because I'm scared for people to see who I really am. Yes, there's things that you don't want everybody else to see, but you first need to at least be honest with yourself about those things. And then you're not wasting energy hiding that from yourself.
Thank you. And we had a viewer type in a comment, and they were wanting a little bit of a reading, but we don't do readings on our show here, but all three of us are consulting astrologers, so you can contact any one of us and make an appointment. And if you guys want to say anything about that, that's fine, but we'll just keep going. So Joy, you want to start us off with the Leo aspects of interest?
Yeah, and this to me, this is one chart that we're going to be looking at for the bulk of today's session, and it's from August 8th in the evening, just before 8 p.m. Seattle time. And what we've got going on is we've got this really nice Saturn and Neptune conjunction there towards the beginning of Aries, and the bisextile that Liz and Simon call it a minor trine. I learned a different phrase for it, but same thing. And that bisextile with Pluto over there at the beginning of Aquarius, and Uranus, which has moved into Gemini now. And so this bisextile is something that's going on for several years, actually. And there's some, again, and I think Simon said this earlier, there's some movement out of orb and back into orb, but it goes on for several years, for at least a couple years. And so this is a real strong background energy. But more than that, we've got that Saturn and Neptune at the 0 point of the zodiac, or the Aries point of the zodiac, which is the fresh start point according to the natural order of the signs. And this is a real birth point. And so when we've got our three outer planets together, in this interesting configuration that they're going to hold for a while. And trines and sextiles are easygoing. And so this is not too much tension. This is a sense of ease and a sense of flowingness. They're going to be holding that, but they're centered around that birth into the beginning of the zodiac and the beginning of a new cycle. And the actual conjunction, Saturn was not able to catch up to Neptune, even though it is a much faster moving planet. It was not able to catch up to Neptune this year. And they both went retrograde before that conjunction happened. They'll both go back into Pisces. And that conjunction, they won't finally meet each other until February of next year, which I think Simon said. And that'll be at 0 degrees of Aries, which is that 0 point, that Aries point of the zodiac. So this is really, really powerful energy, and an energy of what are you starting? And it can be big for the world, but we can use this energy personally. It's like, what are you starting? What are you bringing out of gestation and into being in the world? And the other thing that's very interesting, and this is what I was really going for with this chart, is that Mars opposition to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And so by this point, Mars is ingressed into Libra. It is, and so this time and date is the actual opposition of Mars to Saturn. And Mars is a trigger. And, it takes 2 years to go around the zodiac. So this is a kind of a one-shot opportunity to really utilize this energy and to experience this energy. And Mars will motivate, inspire. It can provide ambition. It can tell us where we're frustrated, which can be a really good, can give us a lot of clarity about what it is we really want. And it'll give us an energy to make those changes. And so this month is going to be a really nice opportunity to figure out what's frustrating you, or where your energy is directed, or what you want to change and bring into the world when when the actual Saturn-Neptune conjunction happens next year, and throughout the period of the outer planet bisextile. And so, and I'll let everybody else talk as well, but I do want to say that the rest of this time we'll just be breaking this down and looking at it from different points of view.
What would you like to add, Simon?
Well, that Mars in Libra is considered to be in detriment. Okay. Now, that's an old-fashioned way of putting it. And people can sometimes, fixate on, oh, that means, Mars is, is in a really bad position. No, what it means is that Mars does not have the usual resources that Mars is accustomed to using in order to do what it wants, in order to get what it wants. And that Mars is ruling that Saturn-Neptune. So they are answering to Mars, but Saturn's the bigger planet, Neptune's a bigger planet, and an outer as well. And so technically they have the final say, but they are in Mars's home sign of Aries. Okay, so what does all that mean? Well, Mars being in Libra, Libra is ruled by Venus. And so it is a sign that is concerned with peace and harmony and beauty. Okay, but Mars can be, kind of a trigger, a disruptor. Okay, and Mars is active. Mars can be divisive. Okay, but Mars is, go-getter and is all about how do we get what we want. But in Libra, Mars can't get what we want by tearing things down or doing things in disruptive ways. Mars needs to do things according to Venus's rules. So that means that Mars is going to be taking actions that are concerned with fairness, with equality, with justice, with harmony. Okay. This is Mars trying, and sometimes with difficulty, but trying to be a peacemaker, trying to be a balancer, but also trying to ensure that everyone gets their fair share. Okay. And when Mars is opposing Saturn, that's two malefics that are butting heads together, right? But in this position, Mars is at the tail of that kite, while Saturn and Neptune are at the head. So the head of the kite, it's like, okay, where are we going? But Mars being at the tail is like a rudder. Okay. It steers. And so there's this very active power of Mars trying to steer the course. And at the same time, Saturn and Neptune going, okay, but you still we're the bigger planets. And you still have to abide by some of our rules. But as a result, there can be some sense of, kind of frustration and the need to, how do I balance these very different energies, these very different attitudes? Okay. Aries is a very active sign, fiery and impulsive. Okay. And it can sometimes be a bit abrupt and authoritative and all of that. And here Mars is over there in Libra going, okay, I have to be nice. I have to be nice. Maybe I don't really want to be nice, but I have to be nice. Okay. And at the same time, because Saturn and Neptune are retrograde, yes, they have that final say, but they're also kind of in their own space of reconsidering things. And here's, that young upstart Mars poking at them. Okay. So yes, this is a very high energy configuration, very fast paced, but because of the retrograde action, we may need to repeat some things, especially when it comes to what are our responsibilities and what are those foundations that we are trying to set. What are the new things that we are trying to get off the ground? And as Joy mentioned, yes, with all those outer planets involved in this configuration, yes, this is, kind of world energy, and yet it is world energy that we can certainly utilize in our own personal things. And quite frankly, the evolution of the group requires the evolution of the individual. And so all of us doing the things that make better lives for ourselves can in turn fuel the energy that makes better lives for the whole, if we are willing to exercise that fairness, that equality, and that sense of justice that Mars in Libra brings to the table.
And I would just add that, that Mars being that trigger, it's like this whole year, the transits have been asking us to make changes in our lives. The new moon following this in 2 weeks, around August 21st, it'll be at 0 degrees Virgo. So it's, to me, that's new beginning points. And it's like, this is helping us set us up for that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to go to the next slide?
I just want to throw out one last thing. Simon mentioned that Mars, of course, is in detriment in Libra, and I thought for sure she was going on to mutual reception, and she didn't, so I want to jump in and grab it real quick.
Good point. Good point.
And so, of course, Saturn is also in fall in Aries, and so they're both Mars and Saturn are debilitated here, but Saturn is exalted. Because they're each debilitated, that means their opposite sign is a place of comfort for them. And so Mars's home is in Aries and Saturn's exaltation is in Libra. And so they have what we call mutual reception, where they can help each other. And the way I learned it, it's like Saturn might be staying in Mars's house right now, but he has the ability to call. It's not like Mars is completely unavailable. He can call Mars at any time and be like, where's the bottle opener? Where's the corkscrew for the wine? I can't find it. This is the most important thing, or whatever he needs. And so can't find the light switch. I don't know, whatever it is. And so Mars is always there to help him, and vice versa with mutual reception. Mars is staying in a place that is comfortable for Saturn and can always refer to Saturn to get that help that he needs to navigate this sign. And so that brings out so much of that positivity that Simon was talking about, the balance and the justice, and not Mars's usual cup of tea, but it gives him, even though she was trying to go there, she kept coming back positive. I'm like, I know she's about to say the mutual reception anytime. And that was it. It's just like, yeah, it's like Mars isn't great here, but things are going well, and he is under that governance of Venus and help from Saturn, and so he's actually going to navigate this pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need that little push to move us forward.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a grand sextile, and Simon, do you want to start off with this one?
Okay, so for this particular chart, we are using the midheaven for the final placement. Within it's everything else. We've got planets, but you'll note there's an empty space there, but we've got the midheaven is filling that space that would otherwise be filled by a planet for this configuration. So, this grand sextile, we've got, it's 3 oppositions, but then 6 sextiles and 2 trines. Okay, so there's a whole lot of flow and support here, as well as the challenges offered by the oppositions. But one of the things that's really important to remember about oppositions is that the planets who are opposing each other can see each other very clearly. They're looking at each other head on. And so, yes, they are having to try to balance each of their needs, and there may be some conflict there, but it is not the same as, say, the tension of a square. Okay? Now, that said, there's still opposition, so there still is some tension, and we can look at that then as being something that helps us to have awareness of some of the limitations, maybe some hardships. Oppositions have the nature of Saturn, okay? But to have all this supportive flowing trine energy and sextile energy, making it possible then to work with that. Like, this is definitely a heightened awareness configuration, that's fabulous. And in air and fire signs, then very active, as with that kite, okay? Lots of ideas, but also lots of follow through to the ideas, not just sitting on our duffs thinking, okay? This particular configuration, now, yes, this is for a specific chart that is for August 8th, and it's in Seattle, but for those of us who may have planets in the early degrees of Sagittarius or even the late degrees of Scorpio, we can really make use of this configuration in terms of heightening our own awareness and our activities surrounding that, so that we're not just like running around like chickens with our heads cut off doing stuff. We're actually doing things from a very informed place. Okay. For those of us who do ritual work, this is a chart that we can make good use of, and we can adjust it for our own time and location. Okay. And also, these are going to be in orb for a little while. Now, Mercury's like the fastest moving of the lot. So, in like a couple days, it'll be out of orb, right? But for a few days at the end of this first 10 days of August, this is a prime opportunity for anyone who does ritual work, for anyone who wants to do manifestation work. This is a big time to be able to get that, like, light that fire under ourselves, but in a way that is informed and active and, lights our imaginations, because it involves Neptune. We may have, the insights of Uranus getting really stirred up by that Mars, that trine with Mars. Okay. Mercury is trine Saturn and Neptune, and so therefore has both the discipline of Saturn, but also the imagination of Neptune. And then Pluto, gives oomph to it all, right? And with both Mars and Pluto trine each other, that is incredible willpower. Okay, that is both personal will via Mars and collective will via Pluto. So this is really an excellent configuration for doing work where you really need to, get some big motivation going. And it can be adapted for your own locations, or in connection with your own chart if you have placements in that early Sagittarius or late Scorpio. And for people who do electional astrology, obviously they can tinker around with that a bit more over the course of the couple days before and after.
Would you like to add anything, Joy?
No, I mean, that's, of course yes, of course I'm going to say something. And just sitting here looking at this is such a great chart. And I was looking, I was trying to work with I always like to grab whenever I can get that, Jupiter and Venus together in Cancer. So energy. And and I was trying to find the actual conjunction. I forget, there was something I didn't like about it at all. And it might have been related to my chart. So I don't quite remember. It might have been some other things that were going on that particular day of the conjunction itself. But I wasn't crazy about it. But this chart has that really nice Jupiter-Venus conjunction, even though it's not part of the configuration, but it still has it present. And the trines are ruled by Jupiter and the sextiles are ruled by Venus. And so they're really, even though they're not directly involved, they're really like a big part of the symbolism and energy of this chart. So yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to like about this one.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about the full moon in Aquarius. You want to start with this one, Joy?
Yeah, and I just wanted to point it out real quick. I did not choose this chart as a full moon chart. In fact, the full moon is actually about 4 hours later than this, and technically into the next day. But at least Seattle time, I'm not sure. I didn't check universal time, but it is important to note that this energy is happening on a full moon, which is a time of completion and bringing things to fruition and achievement. I also thought it was really nice because that full moon is going to be at just short of 17 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, but that's not that far off that midpoint. That midpoint of the sign, which is also 15 degrees Leo, which is also the midpoint of the solstice, the summer solstice to the fall equinox. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And that's associated, the beginning of August is associated with the pagan holiday of Lunasa, but if there are any astrological pagans out there, you know that you really want to do your holidays on that midpoint in between the seasons at that 15-degree point. So we've got a full moon at that point. So I thought, always nice to know that.
Yeah.
Simon, would you like to add anything?
Well, especially in connection with that grand sextile we were just looking at. Like, I wasn't kidding. This is like a really auspicious time to be doing your big ritual magical work. If you happen to lean, whether you're leaning pagan or whether you're leaning towards some other, ritual practice, this is a great time for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Lunasa is a celebration of, Lu is a god of light. And so bringing that light in, that strength card, that shining, all of that, really, really, really nice combination of factors to let that happen.
Yeah. Lu the long-handed.
And then for the tarot cards associated with the full moon, the sun in the second decan of Leo is the Six of Wands, and the moon in the second decan of Aquarius is the Six of Swords. And I'll let Joy tell us about the Rider-Waite-Smith cards on the left.
Yeah, and so the Six of Wands is a card of victory, whereas the Six of Swords is earned success. So they both promise that positivity there. And sixes just generally, they're associated with the heart energy. They're very balanced. They do represent, there's a solar energy behind them as well, Kabbalistically. So they really do represent a sense of coming into your own, of shining your light, of connecting at the heart. So a lot of really nice, good, positive energy here. I think one thing that's interesting with this, the contrast, a full moon is always a contrast between the sun's position and the moon's position. And so the Six of Wands for me is kind of a coming home, a victor type of energy. And the Six of Swords for me is always I'm not putting up with this anymore and I'm going to get out of here. And that's where I'm going to find my success, is when I leave. And so I think it's a nice time, whether you want to come home into your power or whether you're like, screw this, I'm out of here. You're really going to find your power either way.
Okay. And Simon, will you share about the Thoth guards, please?
Right. So there is also a contrast here with these two, although slightly different. The Six of Wands is Jupiter in Leo. Okay, so it's got that bigness, that enthusiasm, that optimism. It's got the keyword of victory. Okay. And it is, it is having faith in our core sense of purpose and in our ability to shine and in our ability to do the big, bold, generous thing. Okay. And then we have the contrast of the Six of Swords, which is Mercury in Aquarius. Now, Mercury does like to be in Aquarius in the sense that it is an air sign and there is, it is concerned with thought, but it is a fixed sign. And Mercury likes to be quick. And we see here these six swords that are coming together in the center of the Rosy Cross. Okay. And they're all equal. Okay. So we can have the sense of, say, a committee. Okay. A group, an organization. This card is called science. And so one of the things I like to remind people about science is that science isn't just, you go to your lab and you do your experiments and your research by yourself. It is also, at the end of that, the peer review. You have to present your findings to the group. Okay. And so that is the case here. We see Mercury presenting findings to the group. And, coming together in the center of the Rosy Cross, there is a sense of love, of order, the willingness to compromise, all of that. Okay. But there's an important reminder here, and that is that we can have to deal with groupthink. Okay. Aquarius being group oriented and being concerned with, how does the group think? Okay. What are the group's ideas? What's the group's accumulated body of knowledge? Okay. a university is an Aquarian institution. So is an angry mob. Okay. And so here we have then again that contrast between that, the Leo, that Jupiter in Leo on the top is, I have faith in my ability to show up and shine and present my work to the group. And then, I have to accept that there are, realities of the conditioning of the group. And I have to be willing to recognize that sometimes I must buck the group's desires. I must buck the system. Again, as I said earlier, the evolution of the group is dependent on the evolution of the individual. And, all of the great discoveries of humanity were because somebody said, this accepted way of thought, I think there's something wrong with it, and I need to, adjust it and prove to people that, like, hey, there's a different way to do it. And so this pair of cards, appropriately enough at the full moon, is showing that contrasting dynamic, the need for us to show up and shine, and sometimes to compromise within the group, but also to be ready to go our own way, just like we see with the Rider-Waite-Smith, if the group is not going to accept our ability to do something new.
Thank you. So now we're going to go on to the Grand Trine in air. And Joy, will you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is this is one of there's a lot of, like, there's so many main parts to this. This is one of the major parts of the chart that we're looking at. And this is that Mars and Pluto and Uranus Grand Trine in the element air. Grand Trines are free flowing. They've got a lot of movement. And that produces a lot of ease. But one of the things about Grand Trines is that that can lead to laziness. And so for air, I thought maybe some keywords there could be capriciousness, kind of an erratic quality perhaps, or even inattentiveness. And I said it's like a cyclone, and then I even backed off from that because the feeling I was getting was more like gusts of wind that are trying to get into a cyclone, and are not necessarily getting that going. I'll be interested to hear what others have to say, but I mean this is good for thinking and speaking and all of those air types of energies. If you're a writer, this is good for really getting your flow going and being in tune with your inspiration, with your muse, with the source that will keep that flow going, and so on and so forth with other things that you associate with the element air.
I like that. Get in there and you can sail to where you want to go with your life or your ideas or what you're working on. Simon, do you have comments?
So, yeah, there is something very active about this. Note that this is two outer planets with an inner planet, with a personal planet. Okay. So, yes, there is personal drive here, but there is also tapping into bigger forces. Okay, we can see the possibility of mental renewal here, right? That drive of Mars with the change of Uranus, and then Pluto can have a kind of when Pluto is in trine with a personal planet, there can be these reserves of energy that you can draw on, where people are like, oh my goodness, how are you doing that? That's like superhuman. Okay. I have Pluto trying a bunch of personal stuff, so I know that, there is that each time you think you're at the end, it's like, oh wait, no, there's more there. Okay. The danger with this is burnout. If you like let yourself go, too much. Okay. But as Joy said, this is a trine. So trines can be a bit more lazy, right? But yeah, I feel like this can be a big, powerful mental renewal kind of energy. And also, yes, very good for writing, good for speaking. Yeah, yeah. I do like that kind of sharp gusts of wind starting to blow into a cyclone because there is big power here. The other factor is there is a lot of potential willfulness. Like, don't expect people to toe the line with this configuration because that's two big planets that are associated with will, Mars and Pluto. And then Uranus is like, you ain't holding me down. So, people whose personal charts are touched by this directly, you may have, especially with kids, more willful behavior on part of kids. If you're expecting people to like go along to get along, this is not the time to expect that.
Thank you. So here's the tarot cards associated with the Grand Air Trine. We have the Lovers, Justice, and the Star card. And Joy will lead us through the Rider-Waite-Smith.
Yeah, and so we've got the Lovers to represent Gemini, Justice is Libra, and the Star card comes in there to represent Aquarius. And I think what I'm seeing here as I just look at these, the man looks to, in the Lovers card, the man looks to the woman looks up to the angel, which can be representative of the super consciousness. It can also represent just kind of divine energy and an influx of divine energy. Maybe not the influx is quite the right word for it because she's looking up to it. She's trying to connect upwards. And then Justice comes along and perhaps evaluates the Lovers' effort towards connecting with this divine energy. And then the Star card grants that success and really pours out that flow of energy into both characters of that Lovers card. And sometimes the question here is just, if I reach up, will I get that response and that downflow of energy? And Justice says maybe not. Let me, but give it a try, and I'll tell you what I think.
Simon, you can do the Thoth cards.
Right. So here we see with the Lovers card, there is the sacred marriage is being performed, the Hieros Gamos. Okay. We have the Hierophant who is officiating, and we have, black and white figures. We have the eagle and the lion, representing Leo and Scorpio energy. We have this combination of the bringing together of opposites. Okay. So this is an alchemical interaction. And with Gemini is associated with duality. But there's also this notion of communication and interaction that is here engaged in a process of mirroring. So that when we encounter other people, we look at them and we see things about them that tell us things about ourselves. Okay. And then we are engaged in this kind of process of adjustment and learning. Gemini is associated with early learning. Okay. And there's then this need to kind of, learn about ourselves through our social interactions. Okay. Then we go to the adjustment card, which is Crowley's name for the justice card. Okay. And adjustment, we see this figure who is balanced on her tippy toes on either side of the point of a sword. Okay. And she's got this headdress on with these very heavy scales coming off of it. She's got feathers coming off of her shoulders. Those represent the Egyptian goddess Maat, goddess of truth, goddess of justice and balance, who at the end of one's life in, the Egyptian way of thinking, one's heart is weighed upon the scales against the feather of Maat, against that feather of truth. And one's heart needs to be lighter than the feather, or else it's going to get tossed to the crocodile and devoured, and you don't get your nice afterlife and all that other good stuff. So there is this need to be light, even as we are weighing what are potentially heavy concerns, right? Justice can be a heavy matter, and yet we need to be, our hearts need to have this lightness, this sense of fairness, balance, equality, right? And this still calm centeredness. One of the things about Libra is that Libra does not like things to be disharmonious. Libra will climb the walls to try to get things to be peaceful and pretty if they are not. The problem is that because Libra is so attuned to whether things are harmonious or disharmonious, that Libra can get if anything's not exactly right, it's going to be distressing. And so there is a need then to be calm and still and centered within ourselves, to find the harmony within ourselves in order to then affect the harmony in our surroundings. Same goes for justice. Same goes for fairness. Okay. That we first need to look inside before we can apply it outside. Now you mix that with that alchemical mirroring interaction of Gemini here within this Grand Trine, right? To be able to see through the mirror of somebody else where it is that we are out of balance within ourselves. And then we go to the star. And the star is that deep wish within us, okay? And, this is a favorable card. This card tends to be about yes, there can be success at this thing that's really important to you. But there's also, again, that balance between individual and group consciousness here. That Aquarius that rules this card, saying, okay, what your big dream is, what your big wish is, has the power to impact others besides yourself. Now, that doesn't mean don't do it, right? It means that, pay attention to where is it that the group seems to not be able to accept what you're up to yet, and recognize you may come up against some resistance, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it. It means that you hone and you fine tune the thing that you're doing, and that you do the thing from this space of your deep heart, which goes back again to the polarity with Leo and Aquarius.
Thank you. So, Joy, do you want to start with the kite?
Sure. Yeah. So we take our Grand Trine that we were just looking at in this chart. This configuration adds the point opposite to any of the three, but in this case it's to Mars, and that is that Saturn-Neptune conjunction there in Aries. And to me, a lot of times that opposite point gives a little bit of structure, a little bit of grounding, a little bit of direction to the otherwise kind of erraticness of the Grand Trine itself. And so and so what I said is that it puts the cyclone to work as a windmill. So the air is there, the wind is blowing, but until you put that windmill there and connect it to to an engine or whatever it's connected to, it's not useful. And this makes it useful. It gives it grounding and direction.
Air feeds fire. Fire needs oxygen, and that Saturn-Neptune at the head of that kite is getting fed by that trine, that Grand Trine with all that air.
Use that Grand Trine with that air, that fire. I like that. Anything else you want to share, or we can go to the next one?
Again, I'm just going to reiterate the power of new beginnings here and fresh starts because of that early Aries energy going on.
Thank you. I like all that. Okay, then we have the cards for the bisextile of the kite. We have Saturn and Neptune bisextile with Pluto and Uranus. And for that, we have the World, Hangman, and Man, Judgment, and Fool. So Joy will lead us through the Rider-Waite-Smith cards.
So, and I'm probably going to be a little bit off kilter, like sharp turn to the left, which is an erratic air thing to do. But what's really cool about this energy and about these three outer planets is that in esoterica, and particularly in Kabbalistic symbolism, the three outer planets align with the three mother letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Mm-hmm. And so we've got the three mother letters are kind of, they have kind of a little bit of this source energy. There's their seed energy type of energy. And with those being the three outer planets and everything being at the beginning of their signs, Pluto was the furthest in at 2 degrees, I think. And I think Uranus is still at 0 for this chart we're looking at, and Neptune's at 1 of Aries. It's just like there is so much potential coming out in this chart and in this ongoing bisextile between these three outer planets. And in another esoteric configuration that utilizes Kabbalistic and astrological and tarot symbolism, we have the thing called the cube of space. And those three mother letters, including the ones that we see here, well, there's only 3. So those cards that we see here represent the I don't know what the word is, but it's the axes of the cube. There is a vertical axis and a horizontal axis, and the world, and there's a up-down axis, north-south axis, and an east-west axis. I guess I have to say all the words out, otherwise it doesn't quite make sense. And so those are the 3 dimensions of the cube, and the world is at the center point of the whole cube. All the other cards get to make up all the faces of the cube and all the edges of the cube, but these 4 get to create the dimensions of the cube, all based on the center point of the world. And so we have here, this is why all of this energy is so powerful. And it is because we concentrate there at the world. And the Hanged Man represents the axis from the east to the west. However, as a Hebrew letter, Mem, it's one of 5 letters that has a final form. And Kevin Townley, one of the 2 major authors for the Cube of Space, the other being David Hulse. I was doing another author also with an H name this past couple of weeks, and I had a bit of a blip. David Hulse is the other author, but Kevin Townley gives Mem Sofit, or the final form of Mem, to the center point. So the Hanged Man can be the axis from east to west, or in its final form, it can match up with Saturn there at the center of the cube. So this is a really tight energy that is strongly concentrated at the center of the cube and is about to burst out into its dimensions. Again, going to the other form of the hangman, which will be the east-west, going into Pluto, which is north-south, and then above and below is the Fool as he jumps into incarnation. And this is obviously a complex topic, but you can see those dimensions. It's like, how big is our cube? You know, like I have a little model of it, like in my office, it's a couple inches per side. That's because, you know, that design said, the Hanged Man said, okay, it's only going to be this big. And Fool said, it's only going to be this tall. And Pluto said, it's only going to be this wide. But this is all that potential. It's like this creation, a cube is solidity and it represents manifestation. This creation has the potential to expand to however big you want to make those axes and whatever final size you would like to create. So this is an extremely powerful configuration right here, not just due to the astrology, but also when you overlay the tarot cards, when you overlay Kabbalah and the cube of space, there is a huge amount of creative potential here. And we can see that even in the cards, because the world and the hangman are inverted from each other in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. The way the hanged man's legs are, if you put him immediately underneath the world, which perhaps I should have, but I didn't. If you put him immediately underneath that, you can see a mirror reflection from the world into the hanged man. And another thing is the hanged man, for multiple reasons, represents birth. And I won't go into all of them because they are pretty esoteric, but the most obvious one is that it represents the baby in the womb turning around to come head down to be ready to be born, and the world is a birth canal as the new being steps forward through into the world of the living and manifestation. Likewise, judgment is the rising of the souls into into heaven or into a life of a sustainable new experience of life, and the Fool is willing to take that leap of faith. And so this combination right here is really, for me, this is what all of this entire aspect configuration and this entire connection between these planets is all about right now.
Thank you. That's so interesting. And Simon, you want to talk about the Thoth cards?
Okay, so you know, the universe card is the end of the major arcana. Okay, that's Saturn as the lord of boundaries, the lord of endings. Okay, but with the ending comes new beginning, right? They are part of a continuum. They're not part of, you don't just come to the end and then stop, right? And so there is this need for reflection, okay, that we see with that card. We also see that with the Aeon, which is the Thoth card's version of judgment. Okay, with the Aeon, we see Horus, the godchild, with Thoth, the god of wisdom, or Tahuti, behind him, and Nut, the sky goddess, overarching all. Okay, and you can see actually the Hebrew letter Shin representing spirit there. Kind of, you know, behind this translucent godchild who is pondering the patterns of our lives. And so this is big crossroads energy, okay? The need to look at how far we have come, where we are now, assess what brought us here so that we are better prepared for the new beginning that we are embarking upon. And that hanged man there, you know, there is that with the hanged man comes a need for surrender. Okay. which is really interesting within the context of all this activity, all of this fire and air. Okay. This is not simply, passivity in terms of our surrender. This is recognizing that we are experiencing and working with some big forces, some big starter energy, and that we need to really dive into that, really, join with that wind and that fire, allow that to be this really activating force for ourselves. But at the same time, from that standpoint of like, there are some parts of this I'm not going to be able to control. Okay. Note that Pluto very much relates to issues of control, issues of power. Okay. When we go through hard Pluto transits, we can experience a sense of loss of control. And that is meant to show us that, yes, there are things that are completely out of our control, that control can be an illusion that we cling to too much. And so there is, I feel like, again, like that relates to some of that lightness that I talked about before with the feather of Maat. The notion that in surrendering to this, we can have an active surrender rather than a passive surrender. And at the same time, recognize that there are going to be things that are operating outside of our control. And rather than getting freaked out about it or going, oh my goodness, I'm helpless, instead to like, I'm going to adapt within these changes and embrace something new and be unafraid to appear foolish, as we see with our Fool here. And I think that this is really a good time for us to adopt what is known as beginner's mind, where, you can know a whole lot about all sorts of topics, and that's great, but you can get stuck in your knowing. You can, get in this mode of like, I already know about that, right? Sometimes it can actually be useful, even if you have learned a lot about a particular topic, to go and take a beginner course in it again. Right? To start over from that sense of, I wish to see this with new eyes. I wish to see my life and my potential with new eyes. I wish to redevelop these skills in a new way that I haven't done before. And to embrace that sense of wonder that the Fool has. One of the things that, lots of people like to describe Aries as, where Saturn and Neptune are, as being, kind of belligerent or like, bossy or all of that. But they often forget that Aries is youngest sign. It is childlike. It has a sense of wonder about the world. Everything is new and exciting. Oh my goodness, I'm just learning about why is the sky blue. Isn't that exciting, right? And so that kind of excitement, that kind of newness is what we can embrace with beginner's mind at this time. So yes, we're at the end of one cycle, the beginning of another. We're at that crossroads space, but this is not like, something to have heavy hearts about. This is something to be excited about.
Thank you. And then we have the mystic rectangle. Do you want to start with this, Joy?
Sure. And so as we, if we add, so we have been working with Mars, Pluto, and Uranus, but if we take away that trine from Mars to Uranus and instead look at the sextile from Mars to Mercury, there at 4 degrees of Leo, we can form a rectangle out of these the other remaining planets. And so, a rectangle is composed of 2 oppositions, 2 trines, and 2 sextiles. And so they'll be in like element, in like gender. And so we get an air and fire rectangle. And basically the ease of the trines and sextiles help bring a lot of productivity to the tension of the oppositions. It really gives them a place to go. A lot of times I like to think of those rectangles as a doorway, a door that can open and if you've just got if you're putting a bookcase together, right, you've got to put those diagonals on the back of the bookcase so it doesn't all lean over and fall apart. And the same way with the doorway, it could lean and fall and the door won't fit. It'll be hard to open. But when you get those two X-shaped supports on your door, that makes it hold its shape and it opens and closes really easily. And so this is a way for us to enter into some new opportunities. What is on the other side of that door for you?
Simon.
Nah, she said it.
I always
You don't really need to add to that. That's fabulous.
Yeah, do hard work, then you get the reward.
Oh, I will add that mind, Mercury, and Mars here are acting in harmony together. So we've got, the willpower of that Pluto and Mars. We've got that, imagination of Neptune with, some structure from Saturn, but having those two personal planets operating together in cahoots. They're like, that is a really wonderful combination when we can think something and then act accordingly, because that doesn't always happen.
Exactly. So Joy has put the
laying it all out with two different decks. I'm like, screw it. We're just gonna have to. There's too many cards. We're just have to look at one deck. And I already had all the cards for the Rider-Waite-Smith. So yeah, and what I've done is the 4 planets. Mars shows up there as the Tower. Mercury is the Magician. Saturn is the World. And the opposition, which is ruled by Saturn, that'll get the World card too. So I put it right in the center there to mark both of those oppositions. Pluto is the Judgment card. And our trines are governed by Jupiter, which is the Wheel of Fortune. Our sextiles by Venus, which is the Empress. And so that marks, so the little cards mark all of our aspects. And again, you can just see, and I love the addition, bringing in that Magician. And everything looks really kind of on the dark side. Even the World card is toned down considerably when it's next to Judgment and the Tower. But that Magician brings in such a bright burst of light. And of course, Mercury is in Leo. So that is very appropriate. And I think that that's really relevant to this entire, all the energy that we're talking about generally, as well as to our opening door that we're seeing here in this particular configuration, is that the Magician creates the outcome that he desires. And so he is the one that is saying, this is my plan, this is my intention, this is the thought that I want to pursue. And all of those other things are bringing some support and ease into him creating that.
Simon,
yeah, this is the Magician's spark of will.
Nice. Yeah, especially when you put those two together, it's like Tower, Empress, Magician. I can, yeah, that cooperative spark plus the, I don't know, I guess the Magician would be the spark and the Tower would be the will. But yeah, I can definitely see that.
Anything else you'd like to add? or we're ready to move on?
We're probably ready to move on.
So now we're at the point where each of you are going to draw a card and share what you get. And I'll put it so they can see us all better and see the card when you pick it.
So I forget, do we have a question in mind? I kind of want to ask how to use this energy because there's so much cool stuff going on with it. And just kind of how can we all benefit from this energy, or how can we put it to work in our own lives? Does that sound good?
That's excellent.
Yay.
Who wants to go first?
I'll let you go, Simon, if you'd like to. Oh, nice.
Isn't that lovely? I love that.
Oh,
so that is the Empress. That is the Empress, and that is big, abundant energy. It is loving. Okay. You see her here. She is wearing both pink and green. And so those are colors associated with the heart chakra, both love for oneself and love for others. Note, she is looking toward the waxing moon rather than the waning moon. She is looking toward the future. Okay. She has one arm in a receptive position, a yin position. The other holds this rather phallic looking lotus. Okay. And so that is the yang energy. She is utilizing both yin and yang energy. Okay. We see down here, there is the pelican. It is nurturing its brood of chicks off of its own blood. There is a self-sacrificing quality to mother energy, and this is big mama energy. But what that is the reminder of then is that we can be loving and yes, sometimes self-sacrificing, but we do need to tend to our own needs in order to be able to adequately love and care for others. Okay. And there is also the reminder that mother is just one letter away from smother. So one does need to back off sometimes, even when we are well-meaning toward others and tend to our own stuff, the better to express a more whole and grounded and complete love. And yes, this is like the big abundant resources of the great mother. But there is also the need to, to use those things wisely, to not be wasteful with that energy, right? And yes, to look toward the future rather than toward the past, but still be fully grounded in the present.
Joy.
Nice. And that's really appropriate that you got Venus, because I got the 5 of Swords, which is ruled by Venus. And so, and this is the first decan of Aquarius, which is our Pluto placement. And so the 5 of Swords is defeat. You can see there is a foregrounded figure who has a pile of swords and a back figure in the background that is kind of walking away or something. Dark clouds. It seems like one person has won perhaps, and one is wandering off. Although I don't know, there's something odd about the way that guy in the background, where the way his foot is raised, like he's like, Oh, I was going to leave, but you know what? I think I got one more thing to say, and I'm going to tell him, even if he does have all the swords. But I think one of the things that we can get from that, and I usually, fives are conflict and swords are communication. So I usually do say with this card that this is a great time to communicate your conflicts and say, look, this is a thing that's bothering me. This is what I'd like to talk about. But with the reference to Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto is transformation, and it's like, how can we use this energy? We're going to use it to transform something, and I think that symbolism became clear without a doubt throughout the entire discussion of all of the different aspects in that one big main chart. But I think the Five of Swords, another phrase that I use for that card is picking up the pieces. And I think how I'll phrase it this time is a little bit of combing out all the wrinkles and the tangles, and kind of we all have the potential to transform at any point, but the ease that Venus brings to our grand sextile, for instance, the ease that Jupiter brings to our trines, and the fact that they're both only a couple degrees, 2 or 3 degrees away there in Cancer at this time, that says that this is a really good time to detangle and get all of the things that have been preventing you from this great transformation and this cool objective and this new thing that you want to do. This is the time to untangle all of that so that you can proceed smoothly and with ease. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank both of you, Joy and Madam Simon, and I want to give an extra thanks to Joy for doing most of the work on the slide presentation this month. I mean, it's a collaborative effort that we all work on the slides, but thank you. And I want to thank our audience that's watched live and those that come back and watch at a future time. And Joy, I'm going to let you tell about your slide.
Oh yeah, I've got this one. I'm on. You can always follow me via my blog. I'm on Substack, which is a great way to follow me, and on my meetup, the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup. I do have one other slide in there if you want to go forward. I have a new class, the Alchemical Tower Tarot Tableau. I've added the word tarot in there as if there's not enough words on this slide anyway. It's the Alchemical Tower Tarot Tableau. It's a major arcana map to spiritual transformation, and I integrate I create a tarot tableau out of the major arcana cards using astrology and the astrology correspondences, and then use that to understand the 7 stages of alchemy. And it is an amazing class. That QR code should be good, and I believe, fingers crossed, I finally got everything combed out with the online presentation of this, and that should be good to go. And take a look at the class. There's a free preview, as well as a more detailed, complete class that you can purchase if it's of interest to you. So this is my newest thing. I'm very excited about it. Lots of really cool. It's very much about how to create yourself, which is such a Leo energy. So how to create yourself, spiritual transformation, using tarot, astrology, and alchemy.
Well, that's exciting. And if you have trouble getting on there, just email Joy or go to her website. You can send her a message. And Madam Simon, you can talk about your Patreon page.
Right. So I write about the astrological transits there on a regular basis. And I create custom astrological art for my patrons. An example of this is for people's solar returns, which is their birthday. It's when the sun returns to their the degree it was at the time of their birth. And that chart is can be used kind of as an indicator of things in the year to come. it's the lens that we see the natal potential through for that year. And so for each year, my patrons at a certain level will get a birthday card, basically, that is hand drawn by myself, that is showing some of those themes from that solar return. That's just one example of what I do. Also, if I'm a consulting astrologer and tarot reader, just like Liz and Joy. So if you wish to schedule a consultation with me, you can visit me at my website, iconalchemy.com.
And if people are in the Seattle area, do you have some upcoming events?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to be reading tarot this weekend at the Crystal Lounge in Belltown. That's on the 27th, Sunday the 27th. And on, oh, goodness, the first Sunday in August, I will be at the PNW Witches Market in Kirkland reading tarot. That's a Sunday as well.
And for other events with Madam Simon, are they on your website or?
Yes, I put up a listing of my events there. Thank you.
You're welcome. And like Simon said, I'm a consulting astrologer. I have a newsletter, and of course, you're watching my YouTube channel. So we appreciate you signing up for things. And I have a variety of shows with Astrology Star Sisters and other astrologers on my channel. So there's lots to choose from. Come back and watch other shows and future shows. And I will be on Talk Cosmos on August 17th talking about the Virgo new moon. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine Software. And you can find more information about that at the website of astroperegrine.com. And again, I want to thank Joy and Simon for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next month as the three of us, but we will see you soon, and we look forward to you. And we're going to say goodbye for now. And I just noticed I have a comment. Oh, somebody said, hello, awesome. So thank you for joining and watching our channel today. And we're going to sign off now. Thanks, everybody. Bye.